After a cliffhanger that invites a lot of questions at the end of Volume 1 third year arc, the next volume will probably give more information that will lead us closer to the truth, especially about the new character Shiraishi Asuka. With the release of the official cover along with 3 colored illustrations, it's clear that the next volume will dive deeper into Shiraishi's role in the story. However, the appearance of Hiyori into colored illustration probably has more meaning than we thought. Since Hiyori didn't appear in the last volume, and Ryuin class experienced a defeat for the start of the year, the new colored illustration probably told us that Hiyori will also take more action in the future. So, let's take a look at it one by one. The recently released cover for Volume 2 third year arc reveal Hashimoto Masayoshi and Shiraishi Asuka as the front characters. Just with a single glimpse, it's clear that Kinugasa and Tomose already ran out of male characters to put on the cover, so they need to recycle Hashimoto. However, it's actually a good sign because reusing old characters means Kinugasa doesn't need to introduce a new male character just for the sake of cover volume. And the new cover female character is the 100 Slayer Shiraishi Asuka. Since both she and Hashimoto are part of Ayanokoji's new inner circle, it's understandable that they were given early access to the cover page. In the first look, there is some kind of familiar feeling about Shiraishi, and if you compare her with Tsubaki from Volume 3 second year arc, it turns out they wear a similar pink outfit. And as if identical color is not enough, their eyes and hair color are exactly the same. Ever since her introduction, there are quite a lot of readers who theorize that Shiraishi is actually Yuki in disguise. And since it was heavily mentioned that Tsubaki is the little sister of Yuki, their similarity feels like Kinugasa intentionally guiding us in that direction. And if we take a look at Shiraishi's quote from the third year website, she said that it is impossible to think about someone 365 days a year and not fall in love with them. It's unclear if she is talking about herself or not, and it also could be just a hyperbole, but if we take her word literally about herself, that means she is already thinking about a certain someone every day and cannot forget about him. And that description fits Yuki perfectly, where she cannot forget about Ayanokoji every single day ever since she left the White Room. There will be a lot of question if Shiraishi is actually Yuki, but let's just put it aside for now and focus on the cover. There is an interesting thing about the way Hashimoto was drawn in this illustration. If we compare it with his cover illustration in Volume 9 first year arc, there is a contrast between his emotions. In the first year, he was all calm and smug because he believed he would eventually come out on top as long as he followed Sakayanagi. But now in the third year, his expression has become more serious and cautious because there is no more guarantee he could graduate from Class A. His position is also a bit unique. His back is facing the camera, and in his right hand he is holding a phone. From the way his eyes are looking, Hashimoto seems like a spy who is hiding behind the wall while recording a very important conversation. Acting like a spy fit Hashimoto character, but his pose becomes more meaningful if we connect it to the last scene of the previous volume, where Hashimoto and Shiraishi eavesdrop on Tsubasa's conversation with Tsukishiro. The reason Hashimoto and Shiraishi were chosen as the cover is probably because this volume will dive deeper into the last scene of the previous volume. Hashimoto, Shiraishi, and Morishita finally know that Ayanokoji is not a normal student, and what they wanted to do with that information is probably one of the main focus in the next volume. If we take a look at Shiraishi's illustration, she was smiling, and I don't really like how that smile makes her look evil. Since we barely know anything about Shiraishi, it's not impossible for her to have a nasty personality. There is a high chance she will get really invested in the information she accidentally hears, and since Shiraishi got another colored illustration with Tsubasa, her importance in the story is probably bigger than we ever thought. The next colored illustration that show us a secret meeting between Shiraishi and Tsubasa becomes the most intriguing illustration compared to the rest, because this illustration is probably a direct answer to all the questions we got after reading the last scene of the previous volume. It's unclear which one has the initiative. Either Shiraishi is the one who approached Tsubasa, or the other way around. Judging by their expression, Shiraishi seems really calm while Tsubasa seems to be careful, which means the possibility of Shiraishi approaching Tsubasa seems more likely to happen. I could say their meeting is probably unplanned, because it's weird they are sitting back to back in a public space. So most likely Shiraishi is the one who came to Tsubasa, but doesn't want other people to know about it, so they talk without seeing eye to eye. Shiraishi's reason is probably simple, which is because she wants to know more about Ayanokoji. Since we have no idea what they are talking about, it's hard to imagine how Shiraishi will persuade Tsubasa to talk about Ayanokoji. However, there is also a possibility that Shiraishi is just stalking Tsubasa, or they actually already have a connection beforehand, and this is just their regular meeting to share information. However, once again, it's strange that they choose to meet in a public space, because talking over the phone is way more secure and practical. It's still unclear how and why they meet with each other, but one thing for sure is, their meeting will have a lot of impact on the story, and probably tell us a lot of information and solve a lot of mysteries. Since Shiraishi has a connection with Sakayanagi, and Tsubasa has a connection with Tsukishiro, their meeting could even create a surprising connection between these two characters, so the next volume is definitely worth waiting for. The next illustration shows us the members of the Ryuin gang in the karaoke room. It was a surprise we got Kaneda as part of the illustration, because so far his existence is not something that is worth being remembered. The other members are Ryuin, Hiyori, and Ishizaki. It's a bit strange we didn't get Katsuragi in the illustration, because if it is an important meeting, there is no way Ryuin wouldn't involve Katsuragi. With that in mind, there are two possibilities left. Either they are still waiting for Katsuragi, or this is just a fun gathering between friends. The first possibility sounds more plausible, because it's unthinkable for Ryuin to hang out with a friend. They are waiting for Katsuragi, and that's why Ishizaki is allowed to sing to fill the silence before Katsuragi arrives. Speaking of Ryuin, this is the first time he is tying his hair in the light novel illustration. If Ryuin agrees to meet, there must be a very important thing to talk about, which usually involves discussing strategy to face the special exam. Since Kaneda and Hiyori are involved, there is a high chance the new special exam will involve academics. However, since the last exam was centered around academics, a new exam with the same subject feels a bit repetitive, and once again, will put Ryuin at a disadvantage. However, there is also a possibility that they will face a really big exam, so Ryuin decides to gather all the brightest minds in the class plus Ishizaki to think of the strategy. It's worth noted that in the last volume, Ryuin only called Katsuragi, Ishizaki, Ibuki, and Albert for strategy meetings, but in this illustration, he even involving Kaneda and Hiyori, so the exam is probably really big. With that in mind, it's possible that they have a meeting to discuss the new island exam. Since both the island exams from the previous years always happen in Volume 3, this new volume is probably a setup volume before the actual exam in the third volume. The new island exam could involve only the third year, or maybe even the whole school. If it involves the whole school, the previous illustration between Shiraishi and Tsubasa could have a new meaning, which is that they meet to discuss their strategy on the island. The uninhabited island exam is the perfect exam to involve every important student in the school, especially the new student Tsubasa mentioned in the previous volume, but it also comes with a risk that some characters don't get a proper conclusion. However, since Nagumo, Hirayama, and Yagami are no longer in school, it should be easier to handle another island exam with the current new character, but the island exam that only focused on one grade does not sound so bad either. Back to the Ryuin illustration, I am quite concerned how Kinugasa will handle Kaneda character. From the newest update from the third year website, it stated that he actually likes someone from his class, and from the second year website, Kaneda said that his type of girl is someone who is calm and smart, so the only possible candidate is just Hiyori. Since Hiyori was shown holding a flower in the colored illustration, the chance Kaneda confessing his feelings to her is not zero. However, it's not Kaneda's romantic life that piqued my interest, but his secret relationship with Hashimoto. It was only shown once in Volume 9's second year arc, but Kaneda was shown to have a secret connection with Hashimoto, and we still didn't know if Kaneda did that under Ryuin's order or not. It's easy to just forget that plot by saying he works under Ryuin order, but since Ayanokoji is probably looking for a spy inside the Ryuin class, Hashimoto could recommend Kaneda for him. It's fun to see how Ayanokoji will destroy Ryuin and Horikita class, and he is doing it secretly by using a spy that's supposed to be Ryuin's specialty. This kind of possible plot gave us a feeling that the plot finally progressed, and it's all because Ayanokoji finally lead his own class seriously. It's as if Ayanokoji said the babysitting time is over, and now is the time to teach his babies the power of an adult. With that kind of expectation, the next volume will be worth waiting for.